Rising Sea Levels by Kevin Burns and Vincent Nuijten. Rising sea levels is a major problem in today's world. The common belief in society is that it is at least partially caused by human activities. These activities cause the global warming and cause temperature to rise. In Al Gore's An Inconvenient Truth, he presents disturbing information of rising sea levels and maps showing these destructions.
Al Gore, a Nobel Prize winner, projected that the sea would rise 20 feet in the near future as ice from Greenland and western Antarctica would melt. However, new projections have said that it'll rise around 4 feet by 2100.
Although he exaggerated the problem at hand, shown in this graph, it is still a very real threat. The Commonwealth Scientific and Industrial Organization shows that from 1880 to 2009, the average rise in sea level per year was 1.6 millimeters, whereas the last couple years show a 3.2 millimeter increase, which is a doubling of former time. The main causes of rising sea levels are thermal expansion, which the volume of water increases as the temperature rises, and as ice sheets and glaciers melt, they increase the amount of water in the oceans. Water is nothing to joke about. It can cause major damage, which we've all seen and heard about in recent history. Hurricane Katrina, which killed over 1,800 people and left thousands upon thousands of people without homes, is an appropriate example.
The flood occurred when over 50 levees and flood walls failed protecting New Orleans. These failed well below the threshold they were supposed to be good at. This failure, due partly to bad design, flooded over 80% of New Orleans. The picture here shows just where the levees and flood walls broke. It also shows the path of the storm surges and flooding.
Another major example of the damage water can do is the 1953 floods in Holland, my home country. The North Sea flooded, represented by the highlighted areas on the map, and wiped away a whole province called Zeeland. It cost over 2,500 people their lives. It also damaged 9% of the Dutch farmland, causing serious economic harm, as shown in these pictures. This year, 2013, being the 60th anniversary of the disaster, we look back upon all the harm that's done. The North Sea flood of 1953 made the Dutch realize that something needed to be done.
The solution they came up with, using cost-benefit analysis, was the Delta Works, a massive project that took 50 years to complete. The works consist of dams, water channels, locks, dikes, levees, and storm surge barriers. The aim of all of these were to shorten the Dutch coastline, thus reducing the number of dikes that had to be raised. They shortened the coastline by 700 kilometers, which is 430 miles. The reasoning was that less coastline equals less area to defend. They also turned the delta into a series of small lakes.
There are many ways in which the Delta Works have prevented flooding in Holland, for me, Nederland. They closed the estuary mouth of the Oosterschelde, the Haringvliet and the Gevelingen, while leaving open the Waterweg and the Westerschelde, because of their importance in trade. Holland, after all, is an export country, with a major percentage of roughly 80% of their GDP coming from export. The Oosterscheldekering, which is Eastern Schelde Storm Surge Barrier in English, is the largest of all the Delta Works, with even an island being artificially created for it. There are 65 pillars, which are up to 38.5 meters, which is about 127 feet high, and weigh around 40,000 pounds. It is designed to last 200 years and is often cited as the 8th world wonder of the world. It costs 17 million euros per year to operate and is designed to fail only once every 4,000 years. Even though these are impressive numbers, the rising sea levels threaten the Delta Works. Therefore, the plan has to be improved. The government has a really ambitious plan. By the year 2100, they want to spend 144 billion US dollars on the Delta Works. The money will go to coastal dunes, river deltas and other improvements. With projections of the sea level having risen by 13 feet by 2200, the government has to act carefully. The deltas have made unsafe water safe now, making it explorable by boat. And there are now beaches, which is good for tourism.
States and other countries also have large areas that they need to protect from rising sea levels. Miami has been listed as the most vulnerable city in the world when it comes to rising sea levels. New York is also extremely vulnerable if sea levels rise due to their location next to the water and their low altitude. The Dutch, being the world leaders in protecting themselves from water, have been contacted by other governments about their Delta Works. Louisiana Senators Mary Landrieu and David Vitter have contacted them. One of the reasons for them going was because that New Orleans and the Mississippi Delta is very similar to the Rotterdam area. The barriers and floodgates that the Dutch use can easily be translated to the New Orleans area. The transferring technology is economically smart because a nation should always use comparative advantage. Both parties benefited from this deal.
This map from the University of Arizona shows that Miami and New Orleans will be underwater if sea levels rise too much. This map shows cities around the world and their vulnerability to surge-induced events. The number shown represents billions of dollars in assets exposed. This money could be lost to just a slight rise in water.
Preventing rising sea levels is largely similar to preventing global warming. In order to stop it, we, as a global community, need to pollute less. Simple things, like taking public transportation.
Cycling. The heat. Turning off the light. Using less hot water. Other energy-saving methods.
Just a few of the little things you can do to prevent the rising sea levels.
There are bigger things that need to be done too. The United States still hasn't signed the Kyoto Protocol, which puts a quota on greenhouse gases. Signing it is absolutely vital in preventing the rising sea levels. The United States is the world's largest economy and a major world power, and it must act like one. After all, everybody is responsible to protect planet Earth. Giving an economic incentive to use smokestack filters and other green things is one thing that can be done. Also, market and greener technology is needed, so there should be incentives for companies to innovate in a green manner. Green energy is the future, and this transaction should be happening now.
Since 2008, federal agencies have reduced their carbon footprint by over 15%. Also, 7% of the power that they use comes from green energy sources now, like wind, solar and nuclear, for example. These are definitely steps in the right direction, and hopefully more will come. If nothing is done about the rising sea levels, then even more drastic consequences will occur. We've talked about Holland and the US, but of course they are not the only ones that are in danger. According to the United Nations, an island like the Maldives will be uninhabitable by the year 2100. Third world countries will be heavily impacted. They won't be able to afford the expensive infrastructure needed to prevent the sea from flooding in. Expertise of developed countries is very much needed. Again, we are all responsible for protecting the Earth. The numbers are frightening. An only 200 millimeter rise of the sea, less than 8 inches, will leave 740,000 people homeless in Nigeria. Furthermore, 145 million people worldwide live at an altitude of 1 meter above sea level or lower, a large percentage of this being in Southeast Asia, one of the poorest areas of the world. The rising salty ocean water will work its way into fresh water sources, cutting supply of drinking and agriculture water.
That we have expressed that rising sea levels is a big issue, and we, as human beings, are not in a losing battle. The Dutch dealt with the Great Flood in 1953 and have protected from the rising sea levels using their extraordinary delta works ever since. Their willingness to keep innovating and protecting themselves set an example for the rest of the world. The U.S. should take a page out of their book in protecting themselves from the sea, since many major cities, including New York and Miami, are at risk.
Poor countries are even at a bigger risk than Holland and the US, and something has to be done. There's no time to waste anymore. Over 100 million people are susceptible to the rising sea levels in Southeast Asia alone. Please remember the little things we've taught you about what you can do to prevent global warming. And for those of you, like me, who want to be a politician, please always encourage green initiatives. And for you Americans, please encourage your government to sign the Kyoto Protocol.